PNM, the state's largest electric utility, says it has a plan to avoid rolling blackouts during the summer, but the very existence of that plan is causing some concern and confusion for customers. Let's bring in our Line Opinion panelists once again to take a deeper look at this. The coal-fired San Juan Generating Station was slated to shut down at the end of June. The Public Regulations Commission says that energy will be replaced by a combination of solar and battery-stored electricity, but PNM says it might not be enough to make up the difference, citing supply chain issues and other challenges getting new energy resources up and running. Now, in breaking news this week, PNM will keep one unit of the coal-fired plant running a bit longer than expected. Now, Tom, is this a no harm, no foul situation? Or perhaps should have PNM been better prepared for their own deadline with an impending summer season right in their face?
There's a lot of different factors that, went into this whole discussion with the PRC and the Four Corners. At the center of it is the ETA, the Energy Transition Act, which requires utilities and governments to basically reduce their carbon footprint by relying more on, carbonless energy like solar or wind. And so PNM was preparing a move in that particular realm. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and supply chain hit. And so, the solar panels that they thought the solar farms that were going to be up and running were not able to get up and running because the parts were stuck somewhere overseas or they could not be made. Mm-hmm. So, you had a lot of different factors that went into it. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'll just be quiet from this point until the next question.
You got it. I got to follow up with you after I finish with Kathy and TJ here. But Kathy, the delay, when you think about it, could also have an impact on decision-making processes in our state, since the PRC will change over from an elected body, as you know, to one that is, appointed by the governor beginning next year. Was this part of the strategy here when you look at this?
I think that I'm like a lot of the rest of the citizens, that we're just confused about what's really going on. And, there's a lot of, finger pointing and blaming about who's responsible for the fact that we might have had these blackouts and now we have a solution. And again, I think maybe it is a part of a longer strategy to say that we're going to get more control over what happens in these regulations. And that's the direction that we're going. And it's going to be, the person who is, in the governor's office controlling who gets to make these decisions. But I doubt very seriously if most of the citizenry know what the Public Regulation Commission is about, or who your representatives are, or, what they were pledged to do. And that may be even less so once it's an appointed position. So I'm hoping that we'll find out more about, people will really, again, just get educated about what PRC is supposed to do, that they are responsible for a lot of what happens in your life for fair and reasonable rates from PNM.
TJ, it's interesting when you really think about it, perhaps, and I'm not trying to play games with what PNM's doing here, but you never know what's going to happen in November. If there's a Republican in that seat, that changes the game a little bit for PNM, doesn't it?
I don't know. Yes, it would. It would totally change if there's a Republican governor. It would change. I think it would change almost everything because the oil and gas. I mean, what a huge amount of power they have in this state. I think to what Kathy said, I think again a lot of it's a lack of trust in the government. And I think it's a lack of knowledge for a lot of the people out there. The PRC, what do they do? Who are they? Why are they? What's their responsibility? Can we trust them? Can we trust what they do? Do they have enough information to make a solid judgment call on this? Because this is a big deal. This is a huge deal for our state. And I'll just come out, man. I'll say it. If there's one area that I am a freaking radical about, it's climate and green energy. I mean, I am. And I would love to see the state move to green sooner than later. And I understand what Tom says is true. We had a supply chain issue with stuff coming over here with solar panels and stuff. That's why this was delayed. However, the last thing we need is to do this too soon, to switch over. Because if we do it too soon and we do it wrong and we do it badly, the state will lose the people on this. We can't launch before it's ready and then have the brownouts and the blackouts. Look what happened in Texas last year. Right. Because if we do this, then the doubters, climate deniers will point their fingers and go, see what I tell you about this? This is all bunk. So we got to make sure we do this right. And there's a lot of pressure on us to do it right. So I hate coal. I am not a fan of coal. we need to keep a coal generating plant online to make sure that we don't screw this up. I said, well, what choice do we have?
That's an interesting point. Hey, Tom, I got to bring back this issue. The timing of this is interesting because it comes just a few months after the PRC shut down PNM's proposed merger with Avangrid. As we do remember, seems like it was many, many months ago, but it's just a little bit. Any gamesmanship here? I mean, meaning, we're waiting to hear from the state Supreme Court as it hears an appeal on that merger.
Yeah, there's so many different ways I could go with that one. There is the PRC. To Catherine's point, is in the midst of they're transitioning themselves. I mean, they're actually having their own transition act because you're going to be losing the elected commissioners in lieu for the appointed commissioners. So I think that there's some gamesmanship to basically run the clock to see, if they can just wait until the new appointed folks are on and then reapproach this whole merger. Of course, the thing that really tripped up this whole merger aspect is the new energy economy and Mariel Nassi and her plight for wanting to protect consumers. Now, it's interesting to say that, her focus with new energy economy was just one of many different voices at the table, but hers was the only one that was not congruent with other consumer right groups and such. So I think what it says is that there just needs to be more communication and more looking towards the future. To TJ's point, just briefly, is that I think there really does have to be a balance. You just can't flip the switch and go all renewable at once. Now, we have, just by disclosure, we have clients in the renewable energy space, but it really has to be a good balance because the battery infrastructure is not there yet. And we have plenty of, oil and gas resources that really should be blended into a part of that plan. It's not an all or either kind of scenario.
Kathy, real quick, and if I have time, I'll get TG on this. How does this impact the governor's failed attempt to incentivize hydrogen energy production? Where does that stand now that we're in the middle of this other thing with coal and everything else going back online?
I think it's all like the same thing. Like, we have to, it's not just one thing. All these pieces really fit together, and that we have to really figure out how we're going to work on climate change and have people understand what that means and how the fossil fuels industry is fitting into that and what our solutions are. And I would just say that, as we've shifted now the mass mandate from the government to individuals, we also need to be concerned about what we're doing to conserve energy. And there needs to be a lot of education and outreach around what the individuals are doing to conserve energy, because it's ultimately going to be up to us.
Thank you all. We'll be watching this story as it develops, including the merger appeal to the state Supreme Court from PNM I mentioned. We'll check in with our line panelists one final time in about 10 minutes to talk about a new plan to extend work shifts for Albuquerque police officers to 12 hours.